Welcome to the Leadership We Need Now, a space where we talk about kind, compassionate, and courageous leadership. I'm Stacey Dye, and I've been a nonprofit director, a strategist, and an executive coach for over 20 years. Today, I'm going to talk about my number one subject when I work with organizations and businesses: staff management, working with others, teamwork, peopling. And not just peopling like the social peopling, but the organizational peopling. This is really a tough one because there's so many ways that people have talked about how to manage staff, how to manage a group, how to lead other people. And a lot of times they talk about like carrot and stick kind of ideas. And one of the things I would say is, coming back from so many experiences with really high performing leaders, high functioning organizations, low functioning organizations, not so great leaders, it all is the same in terms of there is not a straight line to this. No one is perfect at managing people. No one is perfect at being able to lead in a very specific and perfect way. It's constant ebb and flow, it's relationships, it's, understanding that you're maintaining your own emotions, your own life. You have the same morning and you walk into your office where you have spilled your drinks, you've been late to drop off your kids, you're late to work, your shoes don't match you, whatever the issue is, you're walking into that day that way. And so are the people that work with you. That isn't even what they're carrying. Are they late on their mortgage? Are they worried about losing their job? Are they, worried about their kids? Do they have some responsibilities with their elderly parents that they have felt overwhelmed with? And so we walk into these situations, and I always say to people, every single project, every single team, every single experience is a science experiment. You go in and you have all these different chemicals that you're putting together, and you are going to get a different result every time. And so looking at that, I think first to give yourself some grace as a leader to know that this isn't something you can, be perfect at or get right every time. But start with the fact that you want to do the right thing by other people. You want to be a good leader. You want to be compassionate and kind and caring. You also want to make sure that you keep the product going well or right, or the program being effective. And so you have this balance of the human aspect and then the process aspect to maintain. And so when you think about the process, you can control a lot of those outcomes. With humans, you cannot. Even if everything is perfect, there's still times where people get offered a better job. A better job exists for 95% of us. There are times where circumstances that are completely out of your control affect the situation. And so when you're managing people, when you're managing teams, when you're working on a team, just being able to understand yourself and what you're going through and be able to express that, even if it's like, hey, personally, I'm just going through something and I apologize for any of that comes in, but I just don't want you to think it's personal for you, it's personal for me. I think also understanding and being compassionate about what other people are experiencing, even if you both know that you have certain things that you have to get accomplished, regardless of what happens personally. I think that there's this piece where people feel like managing others is really this overwhelming task. So either people don't mind managing people or they hate managing people. Regardless, I don't think I've ever had a leader come in and say, this is something that I am the best at, I'm amazing at. They're the best leaders are the ones that are saying, I feel like I'm not doing this well, or I feel like I'm really struggling with this. I'm trying and it's not working. I'm trying this and it didn't work. I'm trying to make sure they have this benefit, but they don't understand that if I do that, then I have to raise more money. Or if we don't do this, then the funder won't be happy and we won't get that money again. And so it's this balance of responsibilities that you have as a leader, those technical, systematic things that you are required to do, a lot of times by contracts, balancing that with the emotions and the experiences of your employees and your team members. And so I think the first thing that logistically I would tell people when they're focusing on the peopling strategy, the struggles, is trying to understand if you are in a moment where you don't have the clarity or the sea legs that you would like to have. And if that is true, then now is not the time to go into a process where you're evaluating what the other person is doing. It's about, how do I get my sea legs? How do I find some balance? If I can't find that right away, how do I communicate, not to make excuses, but to make sure that people don't take anything that I'm doing as a personal feeling towards what's happening. I think if you feel like you have your sea legs and you feel stabilized and you feel like the other person is really struggling, saying to them, how do we get through this together? How do we work through this? We know we have all these things we have to hit. Here's the things I can pick up. Here's the things we can't. Do you think these are accomplishable things? And having those conversations that cause conflict, cause hard feelings, cause you to have hard feelings for them for not doing what they're supposed to do, have them have hard feelings to you because they feel you should have responded a different way. Having those hard conversations are really difficult. It is don't sleep the night before kind of difficult if you're a manager, but having those conversations, kind of ripping off the Band-Aid, is something that can be helpful for both of you, because maybe it is just the person loves the job, the person loves what they're doing, and they're just having a hard time. And having that conversation so they know that you're there to support them, but that you have to have like an end to get out of, is something where the conflict can be moved past. I think also sometimes having the conversation, the person may not be right for the position. This job may not be right for that person, that you might not be able to work together. That may just be a real thing. And so being able to have those conversations that feel like conflict, that feel like confrontation, that feel like you're being mean or you're, coming down on someone, those are really hard conversations for people, especially if you are someone who is caring and kind and compassionate. You want to sympathize with what somebody is going through. But there is this responsibility of still getting the stuff done, regardless of what anybody's going through. And so the peopling piece is really a challenge because there's no perfect answer. There's no, if you do this, then this will happen. You could be perfectly in line with how you're doing things, and just life happens. The environment changes, the team changes, the situation changes, the funding changes, whatever it is can change it in a minute. So what was a successful, happy, vibrant team yesterday, today may not be in the same way. Maybe, but I think having honest conversations and having safe spaces where people feel like they can talk about that and not feel judged or talked about, or, like there's something hidden or, whispered about. I think that's really hard. It's probably the hardest thing that I see leaders struggle with, is conflict and conflict management. And I think that when I look at my leadership style, how I liked my medicine, if somebody were to give me feedback, I want it how it is. Just give me the medicine and I'll take it. I give medicine the same way. That may not be how other people want to receive it. And so, thinking about that, trying to understand that, again, I was never perfect in that. No one is ever perfect in that. There is no perfect solution. Sometimes you get it right and it works, and sometimes you get it wrong and it doesn't work. And so even when things were hard or conversations were hard to have, I did try to have them. And those were always the ones that I just felt so anxious and overwhelmed by, because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't want it to be, something personal. Even if they felt that way, I never intended it for it to be that way. And so when we're talking about staff management, I think there's so many different things that you have to think about. And until you've managed people, until you've managed volunteers or a group or whatever, you don't realize all of the things that you have to think about when managing people. Yes, you want to be compassionate and understanding and all of those things, but you have contracts to sign that you sign your name at the bottom of. You're trying to do more with less. You're overwhelmed. You have 60 hours worth of work in a 40-hour work week. So to add any more back is really difficult. And so being able to communicate where the employee is or where the team member is, but also being able to communicate that yourself. I don't have any bandwidth to help you with that right now. I can help with this, but I need this to lift, or whatever it is. Being able to be transparent and honest about where you are, no matter if you're an employee or the boss, is really important, because then I think people don't take it personally. They understand where you're coming from. And I think sometimes it just takes people leading others to understand how this feels. Because if you say have a nonprofit and you have employees that are working on things, you have program requirements that are, very specific about what needs to be done. So if they're not seeing clients, or they're not seeing patients, or they're not seeing, up to the number that you're required to do, someone has to make up for that. That's going to have to be answered to. You have a board, you have the community, you have your client, you have other staff member who, if one person isn't pulling their load, the other staff think, why should I? Why should I kill myself? Why should I do more when this person then gets to do less? And I think that is a balancing act. So this is a topic that I think I'm going to talk about quite a bit, because it does come up so often. But the one thing that I think is so important to understand is, there is no perfect solution. And anybody that tells you they have it is wrong. They've literally not managed anyone. I think that it ebbs and flows, and you maintaining those relationships and that conversation and that communication is so important and valuable. So if it's great now, you want to make sure it stays great in the future. I think also being able to address conflict and be honest about where everybody's coming from and what things are really happening is important, not just, again, for the leader, but the person that is following or works for the person leading. And those are two different things. Those are two difficult things to talk about, is conflict and being vulnerable about what you're experiencing and maybe not being able to do what you thought you could do. And so as we do these video series, I definitely think staff management will be a conversation, but this is just more of like a peopling conversation and understanding that there is no perfect staff management. There is no system that if you say this, then, everything will be perfect. It's a science experiment, and we're experimenting every day. And so this is just my little piece of that, and I hope you are all doing well. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing, liking, commenting, that would be great. I appreciate you. Thank you.